Hey, it's Kevin here. Before we get into this episode, I just wanted to say our next live show, The Better Part of Valor, is November 8th. Tickets are available now, and you'll find a link in the podcast description. We've got stand-up comedy, Latin jazz, and the true tale of an incredible sports odyssey featuring Jonathan Campion, author of Getting Out, the Ukrainian cricket team's last stand on the front lines of war. Hope to see you there. You surface from the underground at Piccadilly Circus.
Mind the gap.
Making your way through the glittering lights of London's West End, you take a turn down a quaint-looking street into the notorious neighborhood of Soho, and you arrive at our intimate cafe. Welcome to The Big Smoke, a live-recorded variety show podcast. My name is Kevin Bennett. I'll be your guide through this experience of comedy, conversation, and community. In this episode, we'll hear from Christopher Scaife, former Raven Master of the Tower of London and best-selling author, as he shares ghost stories from the tower itself. There's also live music from historical music specialists Emily Baines and Arnge Hauksson. But first, let's kick things off with Stump the Room. Now, there are different newspapers on each table. Your job is to find the most difficult puzzle clue from your paper that you know the answer to, but you think no one else does. A clue that you think will stump the room. I'm going to give our audience 2 minutes to search through their newspaper, but for those of you listening at home, we're going to jump right to the clue. Who thinks they can stump the room? Anybody? In the front? Give us your name, newspaper. Okay.
So my name's Kate. This is the Daily Express. And our clue is 5 words. Plaster of Paris.
5 letters, but yes.
5 letters.
That's okay. Just making sure we all know.
Tomato,
5
tomato.
letters, plaster of Paris. Have you been stumped? You'll find the answer at the end of the episode. Legend has it that if the ravens who live at the Tower of London ever leave, the entire kingdom will fall. It would be a fatal exit. And so that's the title for today's episode. Do you have any superstitions?
Hello, my name's Connor. Regards to superstitions, it's an interesting one. Not really, I'm not that superstitious. However, I am a big believer in karma. So I'd like to think those who tread on your toes on the tube, who barge into you, and who nick your phone, as is now commonly the place in London, get the world coming back around to them. Or at least I hope they do, because otherwise I don't really face many repercussions, and that's a sad world to live in. But otherwise, no, I regularly walk across drains, I walk under ladders. There's literally building works outside my flat at the moment, and I've walked under it every morning, and I'm still here. Maybe not tomorrow, but for now I'm still here, so no, not superstitious.
Yeah, so I'm Kate, and I like to say to people that I'm not superstitious, but in the case of the acting world and the Shakespeare world, I absolutely am. I cannot, for the life of me, bring myself to say Macbeth when I'm on a stage. It has to be the Scottish play, which is really pretentious, but I can't do it.
My name is Lin, and I'm a Chinese. I have a thing that I don't live on the 4th floor or 18th floor, because 4 in Chinese is 4, and it means like death. So we don't want death.
So my name is Mette. I'm from Denmark. I'm just visiting for the weekend, and I'm actually here by accident because we thought we were going to a theater, and then it turns out it's this event, and it's absolutely perfect because I'm here as a part of a scout organization, and we're called the Ravens. So, do I have any superstitions? I remember as a kid, you know the thing when you walk on the boardwalk and you're not allowed to walk on the lines because something bad will happen? I don't actually believe it, but I can still sometimes as a grown-up find myself saying, nah, I'm not touching that.
So let me just tell you about Emily and Arnge here, who are is it Amias?
Amias, yeah.
Amias. So the Amias Ensemble were formed in 2017 by duo Emily Baines and Arnge Hauksson to specialize in exuberant and often theatrical performances of historical repertoire. They are both keen musicologists, exploring hitherto undiscovered or unrecognized sources for both music and performance practice, and wanted the group ethos to reflect this. However, alongside this commitment to historical understanding, they're also keen to embrace the media and technology of the 21st century. Their repertoire ranges from well-loved classics from the 18th century to medieval songs and dances, occasionally with electronic manipulation, and everything in between. So let's give a warm welcome to Emily and Arngay.
Thank you very much. So we're going to just do one song for you right now. We're going to do a little bit more kind of later in the evening. But this first song is taken from Thomas Ravenscroft, one of his books called Melismata that was published in 1611. And it's called The Three Ravens, and it tells the story of, well, to begin with, we've got three ravens sitting on a tree, wondering where they're going to get their breakfast. And they see this knight who has been killed and is lying dead in the field. So, you know, getting a bit interested, perhaps. But he has these very devoted hounds and hawks who come and protect him so that he can't be... So the ravens can't eat him. And then he has a doe, which is a kind of metaphorical doe, who then sort of comes and buries him. And it's all kind of very symbolic of the sort of chivalric code and these sorts of things. So this is The Three Ravens. There were three ravens sat on a tree, down a down, hey down, hey down. There were three ravens sat on a tree with a down. There were three ravens sat on a tree. They were as black as they might be, with a down, derry, 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 down, down. The one of them said to his mate, down, a down, hey down, hey down. The one of them said to his mate with a down. The one of them said to his mate, oh, where shall we our breakfast take? With a down, derry, 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 down, down. Down in yonder greener field, down a down, hey down, hey down. Down in yonder greener field with a down. Down in yonder greener field, there lies a knight slain under his shield, with a down, derry, 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 down, down. His hounds they lie down at his feet, down a down, hey down, hey down. His hounds they lie down at his feet with a down. His hounds they lie down at his feet, so well they might their master keep, with a down, derry, 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 down, his bloody head with a down. She lift up his bloody head and kissed his wounds that were so red with a down, derry, 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 down, down. She buried him before the prime. Down, a down, hey, down, hey, down. She buried him before the prime with a down. She buried him before the prime. She was dead herself ere even song time. With a down, derry, 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 down, down. God send every gentleman down, a down, hey, down, hey, down. God send every gentleman with a down. God send every gentleman, such hawks, such hounds, and such a layman with a down, derry, 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 down, down.
I don't know if you guys could hear from out there, but the church bells started ringing about halfway through. I could just hear them at the distance. I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you very much. One more time for Emily and Arngay. Before becoming yeoman warder and raven master at the Tower of London, Christopher Scaife served in the British Army for 24 years, during which time he became a drum major as part of a specialist machine gun platoon. He has been featured on the BBC, the History Channel, PBS, BuzzFeed, Slate, and more. After 17 years with the Ravens, he decided to spend a little less time covered in bird poo, and so recently retired from the appointment of Raven Master. In 2018, he published the critically acclaimed book, The Raven Master, and he lives at the Tower with his wife, his daughter, and of course, the Ravens. Please give a round of applause for Chris Scaife. As you can tell, I enjoyed reading this book. There's a lot. I never thought I would be so enthralled and engaged and moved by a book about ravens in the tower. So it was a delight to read. And I just want to read a little passage before Chris starts by telling us a story. So page 44. This is Chris from the Raven Master. I've heard it said that the name of London derives from Lugdunum, from the Celtic Lugdun, meaning town of ravens. Mind you, I've also heard that London comes from Lindun, Laindun, Ker Lundien, Ker Lud, Lunduns, Lindonion, Lunden, London, Londonburg, Longidinium, and goodness knows what else. History and prehistory, legends, fables, and stories, they're everywhere here. I sometimes think that the tower is just a vast storehouse of the human imagination, and the ravens are its guardians. So please, would you mind telling us the legend of the ravens?
Well, first of all, I had to do that on the audiobook, and that was absolute nightmare for me to do that. The Tower of London, of course, is surrounded in myth and legend, and one of those legends tells us that should the ravens leave the Tower of London, it will crumble into dust and a great harm will befall our kingdom. Of course, it is a myth and a legend. So how did it actually come about? Well, so the story that we tell at the Tower of London, the yeoman warders that are there, we talk about King Charles II. On the restoration of the monarchy, he came to see some works taking place at the Tower of London. And at the time, we had a royal astronomer, a man by the name of John Flamsteed. and he was the first royal astronomer that we had in the country. And he'd set his cameras and his telescopes up on top of the White Tower. Of course, the White Tower is one of the tallest buildings in London at the stage, and it was an ideal place for ravens to actually call their home. And so you can imagine John Flamsteed at night time looking through the telescope at the stars and the planets, and these ravens were kind of flying around and interfering with him and pooing on his lens. And so one day when the king arrived to see some works taking place, he went downstairs. He said, "Sire," he said, "can I get rid of these confounded ravens?" And of course the king, the merry monarch, turned around and said, "Yes, of course you can." Until someone turned round to the king and said, "If you get rid of the ravens, the Tower of London will crumble into dust and a great harm will befall your kingdom." So King Charles II, he was very superstitious, of course. His father, King Charles I, had been executed on the orders of Oliver Cromwell. There'd been a plague in London in 1665, the Great Fire of London in 1666. So he must have thought to himself, we better keep some ravens here. So we'll keep 6 by royal decree. So today we have 6 ravens at the Tower of London. Actually, we don't. We have 1 spare, just in case. So that is the legend and the myth that we yeoman warders tell at the Tower of London about the ravens. But would you like to hear a little bit more of the truthful myths? Yeah? Okay. So
You've learned well.
So of course the oh, you want to play? Yeah. So of course the myth of the ravens is not as old as the legend that I've just given you. It probably only dates back to the mid-period of the Victorian period, and I'll try and explain to you why this myth actually came around. Well, it was us, the yeoman warders, who probably made up the stories of the ravens. And during the early part of that century, people were coming into the Tower of London in greater numbers. And the yeoman warders, us at the Tower of London, we were all old ex-soldiers, because in 1826, the Duke of Wellington said that only meritorious gallant sergeant majors can be yeoman warders at the Tower of London. And so the Duke of Wellington brought in some of his old soldiers that had fought with him on the battlefields. And of course, they lived at the Tower of London, but they had very, very small pensions. And so with the amount of people that were coming into the Tower of London, they needed to enhance their pay packet for their beer a little bit more. And so I'm going to bring this to life as much as I can for you. So imagine the Tower of London, the front entranceway, an old yeoman warder leaning on a stick, goes to the front entranceway, and there's a group of people standing there. He opens the door, it creaks open, he looks out. "Would you like to come in?" he says. Everybody nods. He said, "Well, I need a shilling from you." So he'd take a shilling, stick it in his pocket, say, "Follow me." So he'd open the door and everybody would walk in anticipation, and they'd go through and he'd stop and he'd talk about the stories of the menagerie and the drawbridge and the Byward Tower, and the stories would go on further and further as he got into the Tower of London, until he got to Traitor's Gate, and he'd stop there in the outer ward and he'd say, "Do you want to know about the executions? Do you want to know about the ghosts of the Tower of London? Do you want to know the gory details?" And everybody would be nodding. "Oh, yeah. So I need another penny." So he'd take a penny off and stick it in his pocket, and off he'd go. Now that happened all the way around the tower until they got to a newly placed in execution site that was put in around about 1864. And he'd stand there and he'd tell the stories about the executions of Queen Anne Boleyn, Queen Catherine Howard, Lady Jane Grey. But it wasn't very Gucci. There was nothing there apart from a plaque on the floor. So the yeoman warders thought to themselves, how can we make this a little bit more exciting? I know, we'll get some ravens. We'll sit them around the execution site and we'll say to them, "See these ravens sitting here? These are the souls of the dearly departed. And I need another penny." And so that's how the stories came about, through the yeoman warders telling stories as they were trying to make a little bit extra money to enhance their beer habit at the Tower of London. Now, nothing really appeared in any of the the newspapers until the turn of the other century. So about 1904 is when the first connection to the Ravens of the Tower of London and the story of the Ravens actually came about. That's my take on it.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. That was wonderful. So I want to chat with you a little bit about yourself and the book, and it's really a great read. Right in the beginning, you say, "I have what is often described as the oddest job in Britain," and I'd love to just hear what is being a yeoman warder? What does it take? And just introduce us a little bit to that world.
So this story actually came about, it was about a raven that I'd presented to Her Majesty the Queen. And the Tower presented this raven to her. She didn't come to the Tower to get the raven. She sent her daughter. And we presented this raven to the Tower. We called it Jubilee. So that was wonderful. And a couple of months later, I was on holiday in America. And my colleague phoned me up. He says, Chris, there's been a really terrible accident. He said, 2 of the ravens have been eaten by a fox. I went, oh no, that's terrible. Which 2? He went, Jubilee. Now, imagine my heart at this stage over in America, knowing that the Queen's present from the Tower of London had been eaten by a fox. There was palpitations, I must say. And so I got in touch with the powers to be. I said, look, how are we going to sort this one out? And they said, what do you think, Chris? I said, well, ravens. Yeah. So they all look the same, didn't they? So let's get another one, shall we? And we'll call it Jubilee 2. And that's exactly what we did. And as a result of that, that was fine. We carried on for a couple of months. And then Chinese whispers got around and they started to talk about the stories of the ravens, and it got into the newspapers. The Daily Mail of all newspapers. And the royal correspondent at the time, he came to the Tower of London because he'd heard about one of the Queen's ravens being eaten by a fox, and he wanted to do an interview with me. So, the Tower authorities rushed me upstairs, told me what to say and that. And he came to the Tower of London and he interviewed us, and there was a double-page spread in the newspapers the following day. Everything about the history of the ravens and how beautiful and magnificent they are, and just a little bit in the corner about the raven being eaten by a fox that belonged to His Majesty the Queen. So I turned the story round, but he did say in the newspaper article that he said the Raven Master was raven mad. And so that was picked up by another magazine, and they said that he was an odd person, and so that's why I got the oddest title in Britain job. I don't think it is. I think it's a wonderful job, but apparently I'm odd, so I don't know.
What does it take? What does it take to be a yeoman warder?
So I'm an ex-military man. I served for 25 years in the military. To be a yeoman warder, there is a criteria. We have to have done a minimum of 22 years in the military, be the rank of a warrant officer and above, and have an exemplary military career. And we wear a medal, and it's called an LS&GC, which stands for Long Service and Good Conduct Medal, which in my case is 18 years of undetected crime. If you read the book, you'll understand why. In my early days, I wasn't particularly good. And so that's the criteria to be a yeoman warder. So we take from the military, both Army, RAF, Royal Marines and Navy. Currently, there are 35 of us living and working within the walls of the Tower of London, both male and female. And there's about 120 people who live inside the walls of the Tower of London. So us and our families. We even have our own pub there, which is very nice indeed.
What made you want to have this job? It's so specific. You're living there. What drew you to it, I guess?
I've always had a love for nature and the environment. And as an infantry soldier, I spent 90% of my time walking around the countryside on patrol or doing what soldiers do. And so I kind of fell in love with the surroundings that are around us. And I wanted to do something to do with history. And so I went and done I went to Sussex University and started to study a degree in archaeology, which I never completed, I must say, because I got the job as a yeoman warder at the Tower of London. The caretaker of where I was working came to me one day and said, he said, Chris, he says, He says, I know you're about to leave the army. He said, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to dig holes and find bones. He said, well, why don't you be a young warder at the Tower of London? You qualify for that. And so I actually thought that the young warder, I didn't hear the Tower of London bit, was actually someone who worked at Buckingham Palace. And so when I applied for the job, I didn't even know where I was going for it. And I applied for the job, found out, went to the Tower of London. And as a result of that, after some tests and bits and pieces, I was given the position. And so I loved history. I loved the environment. I noticed the ravens very early on walking around the tower, these unique birds, and the rest is history.
And you had to present a history, I guess, lecture, or was it like a presentation as part of the interview?
Yeah, so part of the interview, so we have 2 days of interviews to be a young warder at the Tower of London, and we have to take our families. In fact, I've only ever been for 2 job interviews in my life. The first one, I was 15, and my mum dragged me to the careers office to join the army. It was either that or prison. And the second interview I went to was nearly 25 years later, to be a young warder, and I took my wife. So I've actually never been on a job interview without a good lady by the side of me, which it was fantastic, and hopefully I never will. And so that was one of the reasons why I joined. To be a young warder, I was mad on history. I was loving, living there, the ambience of being able to live inside the walls of the Tower of London. Even to this day, I've been there 20 years now, and even to this day, sometimes I go out and my wife and I, we come back in and we see the tower lit up and go, oh, we live there. That's pretty cool.
There's so many beautiful quotes. I just started writing down, like, all of these markings in the book are really poetic and evocative descriptions of your life there. One of the things I was curious about, so let's dig into ravens a little bit. And I'm curious, first of all, there's a lot of, you talk about this in the book, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of folklore and history, obviously, in the world. And there's a lot, you reference it a few times. One of them I thought I would just read out. This is just a short description of the sound of a raven from Barnaby Rudge Dickens, saying it's not unlike the drawing of some 8 or 10 dozen of long corks. Which I think is kind of, I thought it'd be interesting if we had it. Does anyone have we should try it later. There's a wine bottle with a cork. Pull that out slowly as the sound of a raven. But tell us a little bit about maybe why you think ravens have been such a part of global consciousness, where they appear in different cultures, and what they mean.
Ravens are extremely intelligent. In fact, they're one of the most intelligent animals that we have on this planet, and some scientists agree that their problem solving is that of an ape, which is incredible for a bird. And so they've always hung around with humans, and one of the reasons why they've hung around with humans is food, because ravens are dictated to by food and pretty well nothing else. Now, we can make what we want of ravens. We can see them as harbingers of doom. They're very paradoxical. We can see them as of lights and creativeness of the world. But really and truly, if you put yourself into the mind of a raven, it's all orientated on food. So they knew when we were in huts that they could get some old bones from the area where they was actually going, and archaeological digs around the UK have found that the majority of bones, animal bones left on tips, especially during the Anglo-Saxon period, are raven bones, which is a connection there. So wherever there's a bit of food, there's a raven to have it. And of course, they got associated with death and all things dying, because battlefields, men went to war, we fought each other, the bodies laid on the battlefields, and the ravens would sit there going, look at them silly people. And they'd just wait there until the battle was over. And before the bodies were cleared, in they'd go, whacking out their eyes and taking the fleshy bits. And so that's why they get that association with death. But it doesn't matter where you are in the world. There are stories in different cultures around the world that actually talk about ravens for many, many different reasons. Of course, we have the Vikings and Odin and Thor and Munin, and we have so many different stories. And that fascinates me, the association that humans and ravens have. There's a great story that was that I read in an article a little while ago, And it was a gentleman in America, and he was out in the countryside in the wilderness. And he realised that he was getting stalked by a large cat. But in the distance, he could hear this raven squawking, squawking, squawking away. And he thought to himself, that raven's warning me. It's warning me that this cat's in the vicinity. That raven was telling the cat that there was a food source there, so you could actually go and eat it after it had killed the person. Obviously, he wasn't killed, but there is a role reversal there. You know, we think of ravens as harbingers of doom, but they think of us as a food source.
Do you have a favorite raven reference in all of the different stories?
No, I think one of the stories that intrigued me with ravens in how that humans have perceived them over the years. Of course, Iceland was founded by Floki, and as he was sailing across the waters, he had ravens, and so he used them for navigation. And of course, they would sail on their Viking ships into the unknown, and they'd release a raven. And if that raven came back, there was no land by. But if that raven flew off in the distance, they could turn their boats and travel in that direction. And that's how Iceland was actually found. So the stories like that intrigue me, and how culturally we actually have accepted ravens into our lives. And of course, at the Tower of London, they're one of the biggest draws into the Tower of London, surrounded by myth and legend, and some old Yeoman warders that make up stories.
I love it. You talk about in the book the paradoxical nature of the raven. So how in myth and legend there's sort of harbingers of death, there's a negativity, and then I'd be curious, you speak a little bit in the book how I guess there's some that can come from some truthful place, but then there's another side to them. So I'd be curious, I mean, you've spent so much time with them. What have you learned?
I have always said that the ravens have been my teacher. So over the years, I spent 14 years looking after the ravens, spending all my time day and night with them. They are the most pampered birds in the country, for sure. I had a team of 5 that helped me look after them as well. And so at first, when I took over as the Raven Master, I kind of saw them as part and parcel of the Tower of London. You know, they were doing what they were supposed to do, and that's hop around, entertain the public, being part of the legend and the myths, the guardians of the Tower of London, if you like. But as I spent more and more time with them, I started to look at them in much more detail. And then I realised that they are actually, although I don't anthropomorphise ravens, they are actually very, very similar to us as humans. They have emotions that we have. They have happiness and sadness and depression and empathy and anger and excitement. All the emotions that we have as humans, they have too. And for me, you know, as I spent more time with them, that part of the job became more and more of a focus for me. And so we done lots of studies with Queen Mary University about raven intelligence and cognitive behaviour. And so for me, I started to look at my own life. Remember, I was a soldier for 25 years. I spent 11 years on operational tours around the world. So the ravens kind of taught me to listen. They taught me to be still and observe. And I take that with me nowadays. Even now I've retired from the ravens, I still watch them, I still learn, I still listen, because we've lost the ability, I think, to listen to people, very much so. And so that's what the ravens have taught me.
You've made some changes, I guess, during your time. For example, one thing you talk about in the book is not trimming their feathers or not trimming them as much. I'd be curious to know about why you made the decision, what those shifts were, and if there was pushback or what.
Yeah, it was over a period of time, really. It wasn't something that I was consciously wanting to do. I think one of the stories that I tell is about a raven called Thor. And unfortunately, Thor, we had some work taking place at the White Tower, and unfortunately, Thor, with its partner Mooning, climbed up the scaffolding. And I tell a story about how I went up the scaffolding and Mooning jumped off. Unfortunately, Thor, the male raven, was too heavy. And at that time, we were trimming up the flight feathers, both primary and secondary. Unfortunately, Thor didn't glide down like its partner and went crashing down, and I heard it thud to the ground. So I raced down the scaffolding, got to the bottom, picked Thor up knowing that he was dying, and he died in my arms. And it's quite a sad story in the book. And I thought then to myself, how can I stop this happening again? So over a period of time, I took less and less flight feather from them until I got to a stage where they would stay at the Tower of London, hopefully, and be able to move around much more naturally than they do. And so that was the idea of that. It didn't always work. I have had ravens that have left the Tower of London. One left for 7 days. I talk about a story in the book of how I climbed up the White Tower and swung on the spire up there trying to catch a raven. And it's absolutely true. I have been on every single building you can possibly think of the tower trying to catch ravens over the years. I'm getting too old for doing that now. But and so through trial and error over the years, I managed to achieve most of my aim of giving the birds much more freedom of movement. Of course, I've retired. People move in, people take over the jobs. I was just a facilitator for that period of time for the ravens, and now the new Raven Master has other things that he does. So the ravens will always be there. So the facilitator's me in my uniform, just kind of move on. But that's what the ravens are about. One of the major things for me was that I used the ravens, and although they were trimmed down and we took away their movement and their flight, it allowed me to use them on social media, which is a great tool when used properly, to enhance or tell the stories of the ravens and try and get people to understand how intelligent they are, how beautiful they are. And if they understand that the ravens are beautiful, in my head, I thought to myself, well, perhaps we look after the environment that we have and try and look after the creatures that are around us every day. Now, I stood out here earlier on. I was only out there 10 minutes listening to 3 birds singing around us. How many people walk around here listening to what's around them? It's a sad thing that we've lost, but we can do it.
The story about Thor is really heartbreaking in the book, and especially I think because you make it so clear in your writing how much it means to you and how much you put your heart into it and the connection that grew with this role and the birds. And I was particularly struck, I just wanted to read another passage, something as simple as cleaning out the raven's water bowls this is how it's described. This might sound silly, but I love filling the water bowls. It's one of the highlights of my day. I scrub and refill them daily. There are plastic bowls in the raven enclosures and 6 stone bowls dotted around the tower's inner ward where the ravens spend their days. I like the simple act of refilling the bowls, the sound of it, the smell of it, the clarity of the water. It's a ritual for me. It's my quiet time. This is when I get to clear my head and think about the day. They say that getting up and out early in the morning into the fresh air, no matter what the season, is good for your mental and physical health. All I can say is that I've been up and out early in all seasons every day for my entire working life, and so far so good. I just was so moved by the simple description of cleaning out a water bowl. Just another question or two. I wanted to know, So what's next, I guess? You're still at the tower. How is it, because it was only a few months ago that you retired from that position. How is it being there? What are you looking forward to now?
I'm looking forward to doing not a lot, to be honest with you. And so I retired from the job of Raven Master at the beginning of this year. I've been at the tower 20 years. The job of Raven Master, or looking after the ravens, is a full-on job, and there was lots and lots of stuff that is involved with it. So for me, on a personal note, I had to take a really difficult decision to step back from the ravens, although I get to see them every day and they come up to me and they still know me, which is fantastic. But the cleaning out the water bowls, the cleaning out the enclosures, getting up early, first light, going to bed last light, the restrictions that it has on me was just taking a toll on me as I get older. And so I decided to take a step back and let someone much younger do the job. And Barney, who's on the team. He was on the team for 11 years, so he knows the Ravens really well, and he's doing a fine job.
You talk about describing the Ravens and you say, maybe I'm describing myself. You say, we think we are describing the world when in fact we are describing ourselves. And I was really struck by that because I thought about in the beginning of my career directing a lot of Shakespeare plays, and I would pour everything into them. And I was, searching for the themes and the story and what does this mean? What is the story that's being told? And I always was like, almost surprised or delighted that the story being told was something that I needed to learn. And I loved how you've told this story and clearly expressed such deep connection and also learning from it. I just want to read a little bit of a conclusion and then that'll be it. So for me, after my life in the army, caring for the Ravens has meant becoming part of another family, learning to trust and be trusted, seeking to understand their needs, being alongside them when they're happy or depressed, when they're angry or lonely, and doing what I can to the best of my ability when they need my help. If I had to sum up my Raven care philosophy, it would be this. Animals are individuals just like us, and they deserve to be treated with respect. A bit like a yeoman warder, the Tower Ravens have a job to do, upholding tradition and reminding us of our past. In return, they get their food and lodgings for free. They rely on us and we rely on them, and that's it. My final piece of advice is this. In the end, to understand birds, you've got to be able to think like a bird, which sounds ridiculous, but I believe that with just a bit of effort and imagination, it's possible at least to see things from their perspective, and so to begin to understand why they do what they do, how they feel, and why they're so similar to and yet so utterly different from us. So thank you for being here. We're going to hear a little bit more from Chris in the second half. He'll tell us a couple of ghost stories. But before we take our break, please, thank you very much, Chris. We'll give him a round of applause. And something that we do here that I'd like everyone to think about before we take our break is I call it parish notices, which is simply asking the question, how are you fostering connection or community in the coming week? So this could be coming to an event like this. It could be going to a play. It could be going to walking down, in the park with a friend. It could be leaving your phone at home for the afternoon. That's always my goal. Don't often achieve it. But do you have any parish notices that you'd like to share with us? Anything you're doing in the coming week?
Yeah. I meet 3 million people a year at the Tower of London. Be kind. Be kind. That's what I want to do. Be kind.
Love it. One more time for Chris. Thank you so much. In each show, we like to hear how you are fostering connection and community. We call this a parish notice.
My name is Inky, and I'm going to a pub quiz at my local pub. They do one every month, and me and my friends always come last every single time, but it's a really nice community vibe.
Hi, my name is Arna. My parish notice is that, next week I am joining my wife in Cardiff for the week. And for me, that's a way of finding connection with a different country. I spent 2 years going to school in Wales, so actually traveling to Cardiff is sort of meaningful in that way. And it's a smaller city, and I always find that going to a new place opens me up to the people and the place in a different way. I'm out of my comfort zone, and that's how I'm going to find connection next week.
Hello, my name is Annabelle. My parish notice is really a week by week. I smile at people on the tube. When I leave the house, it's just about trying to catch someone's eye, and you might not know, they might be having a bad day, a great day. It might either pick them up or just amplify what they're already feeling. No, I think there are moments where people think that you're coming onto them. So if it's a girl onto a man, sometimes you sort of have to go, you have to pick your people quite carefully. But to be honest, if you smile, most people are quite taken aback, and they'll do a double take and look back and kind of reaffirm or just go, actually not for me. But it's not a reflection on you.
Hi, I'm Yuki. Next week, I'm going to ask somebody to dance with me on the street, because I think dance brings people together and then build an instant connection.
Hello, my name is Emily. I'm a musician, And my parish notice is that tomorrow I am going to go and meet some friends. So I'm doing a show, and some of my friends are coming to the show, and I'm going to go and see them. I haven't seen them for ages, and so I'm really looking forward to reconnecting with them and, spending some time together.
So it's time to hear a little bit more of Emily and Arngay. Let's give them another warm welcome for the second half. So when I spoke to them about coming tonight, we talked about, obviously, the historical music inspired by the Ravens. The song you heard earlier was called The Three Ravens, inspired by the Tower of London as well, which has so many layers of history. But we also spoke about the themes of music and fear and how music can evoke, obviously emotions. But specifically, I'm interested in that sort of unnerving, fear-based being Halloween. So they're going to play a little set for us.
We are indeed. We're going to start with a little pair of tunes, and these ones go back to the late 14th century. So the first one that we're going to play is called It's the Lament. So we're looking, we were, as Kevin said, we're exploring the themes of kind of emotions, and particularly sort of the darker emotions and the sort of emotions that we might choose to evoke around Halloween, but also then kind of thinking about the fact that Halloween has become this kind of festival as well. So we explore the dark side, but we also really quite enjoy it. So we've got a little set of tunes that kind of revel in that feeling of darkness. So we're going to go for, so the first tune is called the Lamento. It's Tristan's Lament. So it's the Lamento di Tristano. It's originally an Italian tune, but it's found in a British manuscript. And it's found in a manuscript that is now in Britain, sorry. But what's interesting about it is that it's not just one kind of sad tune, it's a pair. So we've got a sad sort of lament, if you like, but then there's a paired dance that goes with it called La Rotta, which is a much faster dance. It uses the same musical material, but instead of being this kind of slow, kind of mournful tune, it turns it into quite an upbeat dance. So that sort of paired dance is something that is quite common, actually, particularly in later kind of 16th century dance music. So this is the Lamento di Tristano. And I promise these bagpipes are much more socially acceptable than ones you might have heard before. So our next little pair of tunes is a song and a tune, actually. And the song is probably the earliest surviving song that's written down in the English language. So it's from the first half of the 13th century, and probably in keeping with many other British songs that came afterwards, it's complaining about the weather. So the words are, "Merry it is, hwy le summer I last," with Fugel's song. So isn't it lovely when it's summer and the birds are singing? "Och nu neheth wind is blast and weather strong." But at the moment, it's pouring with rain and blowing a gale. Ei, what? This nicht is lang. So, for goodness sake, this night is going on forever. And ich with well Michel wrong, Zurich and mourn and fast. And I with many, many wrongs, sorrow and mourn and fast. So I'm hungry as well, on top of everything else. So this is "Merry It Is," and then we'll go into, again, another sort of late 14th century dance called Saltarello. Thank you.
If you're interested in what instrument we're playing, this is sort of like a medieval guitar, but the name is a gitten, and it's the same instrument as it's also bowed, named the rebec. It's made out of a whole piece of wood, carved out with a wooden top, and this has 4 courses or 4 pairs of strings apart from the top one. They came from 3 till 5. We see this. There's only one that has survived, which is quite a late instrument, but we see this in pictorial evidence and carvings in churches, and that's how makers make them. This one is actually quite personal to me because it's got an Icelandic sea eagle on top. This is a picture I sent to the maker, and he did this for me, which I didn't know until I got the instrument. Got a little hawk on there because my patronym in Iceland, we don't have surnames, but I'm son of Hawk. My dad's name is Hawk, so he made me a little hawk.
I love it. I could sense that disdain for the weather in the beginning of that last piece.
So we also thought about kind of exploring how musically how we reflect kind of emotions, and this next piece really sort of sprang to mind when we started thinking about darkness and uncertainty and the sort of the way we deal with the unknown and conflict within ourselves in music. So this is In Darkness Let Me Dwell. It's by John Dowland, and it's quite special for its period. It's written around kind of 1600, but it really explores some really quite crunchy harmonies when he starts talking about how, because he's so miserable, music sounds jarring to him. He talks about despair and he talks about weeping, and here we get some really kind of crunchy chords. We get a lot of moving from major to minor very quickly, and also at the very end we get this kind of real sparsity of texture, so that we get the voice just ending completely on its own in this kind of quite desolate way. So this is In Darkness Let Me Dwell by John Dowland. We're going to finish with just a little set of 3 tunes. These are all from around the sort of mid to the end of the 16th century. And the first one is quite a sad tune. It's called Fortune My Foe. It's also got a text that goes with it, but we're going to play the tune version of it. That's going to go into a tune called Argiers, which is also called The Wedding Night. So this idea of kind of starting to revel in our misfortunes, but actually having a bit of a party while we do it. And then we're going to finish with a tune called Mrs. Winter's Jump, which I think is a great name for a tune.
In the ancient Celtic tradition, on October 31st, Samhain was the festival marking the end of harvest and the beginning of winter. During this time, it was believed that the boundary between the living and the dead was blurred, and that spirits would roam the earth. One of the earliest forms of trick-or-treating was at this time when people would leave food out to appease wandering spirits. Like many ancient traditions, Halloween stems from a ritual that aims to guide us in a time of transition. This one helping us, perhaps, to cope with those darker nights. Here at the Big Smoke, we will continue the ritual with our very own game. This is Trick or Tune. All right, so we've got 3 members of the audience are going to join me. They're going to tell us a little bit about themselves, and then you'll decide if they play Trick or Tune. I'm supposed to do Kevin does spooky laugh there. We'll just all imagine that. Maybe let's all do it together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. So please welcome to the stage Lynn, Alex, and Inky. We're going to have you stand right along the front there. Give them a big round of applause. Come on up. Standing on the front. Okay, nothing to be nervous about. Nothing to be nervous about. Lynn, Alex, and Inky. Very good. So we'll start on the left, Inky. Okay, so Inky, we're going to start with you. Please tell us your name and 3 words that you think best describe you.
My name is Inky, and 3 words that best describe me are thoughtful, introverted, and political.
Ooh, very good. You can hold on to that mic. So now it's up to you in the audience to decide. Will it be trick or tune? So do we want Inky to trick us or have to guess a tune? Okay, so I need you to cheer for the one that you want to choose. So audience, let's hear it for trick. All right, let's hear it for tune. Oh my gosh, what do you think it was? Tune? Okay, it's tune. So, Inky, would you like, you have 3 options to choose from. We're going to play a live little bit of a tune, and you're going to see if you can guess. If you can guess, you win a prize. I've got some lovely Raven prizes here that you can choose from. I've got Raven socks. I've got Raven, oh, what happened to my, I've lost, oh, no, there it is. Yeah, it flew away. Raven socks, Raven Christmas ornament. I've even got a little Raven, I don't know what this would be. A little setup. Yeah, there. Beautiful. Okay. 70s funk. These are your options here. 80s pop. You'll know. I think you'll know some of these. Or 80s soundtrack. Which one would you like?
80s pop.
80s pop. Listen carefully. Okay, that's it. We're getting pretty close. Any idea what that is?
Thriller.
Oh! Give Inky a round of applause. Would you like socks, Christmas ornament, or this little guy here?
Can I have that little?
Yeah. Oh, give Inky a round of applause, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you please pass the mic to Alex? Alex, let us start. Please tell us your name and 3 words you think best describe you.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex. 3 words that best describes me: open-minded, inquisitive, and adventurous.
Oh, very nice. And it's up to you, audience, to decide. Will it be trick or tune? So let's hear it for trick. Okay, let's hear it for tune. I think we know what it is. It's going to be trick. So you're going to tell us, you're going to try to trick us, myself and the audience, by sharing 2 truths and 1 lie. If you trick us, you win the prize. So 2 truths and 1 lie. We're trying to figure out which one is the lie about Alex. Here we go.
That's hard to come up with on the spot. So
Oh my God, do you know what I just realized? I'm going to totally admit this in the moment, but we're going to go with it anyways. There's multiple Alexes in the room, and there's another Alex that was prompted to do this, but you're up on stage unprompted. There was another Alex that was prepared. Suddenly I went, hang on a second, I didn't talk to you before the show and give you 2 truths and a lie. Alex, you're just going to do it on the spot. It's improv. Because you jumped up when I said your name, even though it was the lovely Alex over there. Give us a wave, Alex, in making coffees. She's prepared with her 2 truths and a lie. What do you think, Alex?
Okay, so
let's see.
Let's
this
see.
is like
let's
truly
see.
on the spot in the moment.
First story that I'm going to tell you guys is that I was invited along from an Austrian schoolmate of mine. So I lived in Copenhagen for many years, went to my school. He invited me along, going skiing with him. And he's like, there's no way Alex is actually going to come. So just me with 20 Austrians a week alone in the Austrian Alps or the Lonely Mountains. That's story number 1. Story number 2 is that I went to the US for a wedding. And I spent more time traveling to actually get there than I actually ended up spending in the country itself. 26 hours in the country versus 28 hours of actually traveling. Last story would be that I hiked the entire French Alps last year with those American friends of mine who I went to the American wedding of. Which one do you think is the
Okay,
lie?
so let's do a cheer. So story number 1, cheer if you think that is the lie. Number 1, give us a cheer. No, everyone thinks number 1 is true. Wedding, give us a cheer if you think that's the lie. Number 2, French Alps, give us a cheer if you think that's it. Everybody thinks that's the lie. Alex, is that the lie?
Yes.
Oh!
So I did hike the French Alps, but I only completed 90% of the trip.
Okay, very good. If you could pass along to Lynn, this is the real Lynn that has been given the questions ahead of time. Are there no other Lynns in the crowd? I just want to make sure. Lynn, could you please tell us 3 words to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Lynn. I'm a foodie. I'm very adventurous and curious.
Adventurous, curious, and a foodie? Is that what
Yes,
the person?
a foodie.
Adventurous. Oh, I love it. Okay, very good. Okay, audience, we're going to decide, do we want trick or tune? So give us a cheer for trick. Give us a cheer for tune. I think it's tune. I think, how are your musical skills?
Not really. I was born after 1995, so anything before.
Well, your options are, which one did we do? We did 80s pop, so you're born after 1995. Your options are 70s funk or 80s soundtrack. Which one did you choose? Let's go for 80s soundtrack, I think. I'm going to give you, does that sound good to you, Lynn?
I'll try my best.
Okay, we'll do 80s soundtrack. I think that might give you maybe give you a fighting chance. Let's see. Okay. It's a ghosty type of movie. It's a ghosty type of movie. Any thoughts, Lynn?
Not really. I can't.
Okay, shout it out. Oh, you know what? Lynn and Alex, you're gonna get some prizes anyways. Give them a round of applause. As we near the end, I thought it would be good for us to hear a couple of tower-related ghost stories, just to send us out into the world with a bit of a spooky spirit. Here we go, and this is from The Raven Master.
I'm going to read out a little bit of a chapter called Ghosts of My Life. And I just want to set the scene before I go into a story that happened to me whilst I was there. People often ask if I believe in ghosts, to which the honest answer is yes and no. You may remember that when Scrooge is confronted with the ghost of his business partner, Jacob Marley, in A Christmas Carol, he says that he doesn't believe that he's a ghost. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato. There's more of gravy than there is grave about you. I think at least for some of our famous Yeoman Water ghost tales, They have a touch more gravy than they do grave about them. They're best taken with a large pinch of salt, and indeed a drop or two of whisky, or perhaps a pint and a pie in the Tower of London's famous club. But I have to admit that there are some things about the Tower that one can't explain. Now, you know me. I'm an entirely rational, roughy-tufty infantry soldier. But even now, after almost 15 years as a yeoman warder, wandering around the Tower at night, even I can't but help half expect to meet Anne Boleyn, Sir Walter Raleigh, or the two boy princes, or even just a headless soldier patrolling the battlements. Are there really such things as ghosts at the Tower? Do they stalk the ancient cobbles and the passageways in the dead of night? I doubt it. But are there echoes of the past everywhere, shadows which beckon and call out to us, if only we'd pause and listen? There have, of course, been many reported ghostly sightings at the Tower. One of our ex-yeoman warders, Bud Abbott, wrote a book about them. Bud was a great character and storyteller, and lots of the yeoman warders rely to this day on the accounts of ghosts and apparitions in his book, The Ghosts of the Tower of London. They're good stories, but because of the rather peculiar nature of my job, spending so much time wandering around the Tower late at night and early in the morning, I have experienced some uncanny goings-on at first hand. Now, I don't usually like to talk about ghosts, because frankly, it can all sound a bit crazy. Nevertheless, there's another necessary aspect of the Raven Master's work, coping with the ghoulies and the ghosties and the long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night, or at least the prospect of ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night. In Bud Abbott's words, a candle flame is almost invisible in the sunlight, but it is still there. So it is with the ghosts of the Tower of London, and if you look where the shadows linger, in the corners, around the stairs, you may see them too. So, are there ghosts at the Tower of London? There are things that have happened to me over my time there that I really can't explain, and I call them echoes of the past. I think there is a part of us, perhaps when we pass away, a memory, perhaps, an energy that is impregnated in the fabric of the Tower. And so a couple of stories that I'll tell you now if I've got time, stories that have occurred to me now. They're not scary stories. They're not the stories of Anne Boleyn walking with her head under her arm, although I have seen her. They're stories that have been personal to me. Now, I don't know whether that's my imagination. Who knows? Who can tell? But one evening, I was putting the ravens to bed. It was getting towards last light. It was about 7:30 in the evening. The tower was shut, and I was there on my own. Now, the birds, when they went into their enclosure, go in a particular order. They're very neophobic, and so I put the first two birds to bed in their night box, and then the next two, and the last two, which was Erin and Moonin, they had a tendency to hang behind at last. Now, Erin was quite a particular raven. She had some strange qualities about her. She would walk into the enclosure and walk out, look around, walk in, walk out, walk in, walk out. She'd do it 3 times. But on this occasion, there was a bench next to the enclosure, and I just happened to see out of my corner of my eye. I was busy putting the birds to bed, ushering them into the enclosure. I saw a small child sitting on a bench. She was dressed very similar to what we are now. She was about 10-year-old. She had long mousy hair, and she just sat there with a kind of a little smile on her face. And anyway, I didn't think nothing of her, but on this particular occasion, Erin wouldn't go past her. So I just happened to say to this young lady, "Excuse me, would you mind just moving over there whilst the raven won't go past you whilst you're sitting there?" And didn't think anything of it. I went and opened up the enclosure, and as I turned round, she'd completely disappeared, and she'd gone. And I thought, that's a bit strange. she had to walk past me. So I was a bit worried about her. And I had never seen her before. She wasn't one of the people's daughters that lived there, and so I was a bit concerned as to what she'd ever done, or had I upset her. And so I walked around the grounds, and there was nothing at all. So I don't know whether there was somebody physically sitting there that night, or whether I wanted a person to be sat there. But it is one of these vivid memories that stick with us, and it will stay with me for forever. It's one occasion. It's not a scary story, but it is there still nevertheless. Now, when I first joined the Tower of London, I said earlier on that, my wife came to me for the interviews, and we were walking around the Tower of London, looking around going, oh, this is fantastic, we're going to live here. And we happened to go into another tower called the Beauchamp Tower. It's allegedly one of the most haunted towers that we have in the Tower of London, the Beauchamp Tower. Don't ever go in there. And anyway, we was walking around, and she walked into this tower, and my wife was very black and white. There was no grey area with her. And when she came out, there was tears rolling down her face. And I just happened to say to her, Jazz, what's wrong? And they said, there's a man in there. He doesn't want me to be in here today. I said, what do you mean there's a man in there? Yeah, he says he's dressed. He was complaining about something that was tight around his neck. I said, don't be so daft. Anyway, when I got the job, we just happened to move right next door to the Beauchamp Tower. And there I lived for 17 months. And my wife, having lived at the tower now for nearly 20 years, has never been in that tower again. Now, strangely enough, on many occasions, school children walking hand in hand around the tower, normally youngsters about 5 or 6 year old. Sometimes it always seems to be the ladies or the girls. They come up to me and go, there's a man in there, doesn't like me. Who knows? Do you want one more?
Go for it.
So these are true to me. They're true stories. And I used to live, when I first moved to the Tower of London, I was on Tower Green, and that's where I lived. It was a very small flat, actually right next door to the Bloody Tower. Now, I don't know if you know, but the Bloody Tower is believed to be where the two boy princes, Edward V and his brother Richard, Duke of York, were murdered, smothered, stabbed to death. And we knew that the house that we was moving into was very close to the Bloody Tower. And we knew that there were things that were going on strangely in the house. I wasn't there long, I must admit. And on one occasion we had some workmen working in there, and a cupboard flew open, knocked him on the head and nearly knocked him out. But on many occasions I would wake up early in the morning, about 4 o'clock, and my computer, because it was a very small flat, was in my room, and the screen would flicker. And for some strange reason, I'd get up and I'd want to look out over Tower Green. And as I look out over Tower Green from my window, I can see the site of the scaffold where the executions took place, and the chapel in front of us. And I always remember, every time I looked out, seeing a lone figure walking along towards the chapel, going into the chapel. And I don't know again whether I was half asleep or whether I'd been drinking too much whiskey. I don't know. But it was there, and I saw it all the time.
Did you solve the crossword puzzle clue? Daily Express, 5 letters, plaster of Paris. The answer is gesso. Gesso, gesso. If you didn't know, gesso is a liquid primer that's typically made from a combination of chalk, pigment, and a binder. The word gesso comes from the Italian word for chalk. It's that time again. Victorian parlor games. All games, from the Roman gladiatorial battles to a quiet round of cards or charades, are imitations of real-life situations. The activity of playing games is the expression of an instinct, for play is far older than culture, older even than prehistory. So here's our offering to you, a way to connect with your friends and family and have a bit of fun. Today's hallowed parlor game is the autumnal favorite, the glamorous, the glorious, the glowing Ring My Gourd. This game is perfect to play around Halloween when you might just have a few pumpkins laying around, and possibly a few glow sticks. Here's what you need. A pack of ring glow sticks, which are the glow bracelets or glow necklaces, the skinny glow sticks that can be attached together to make a ring. And a pumpkin or two, or really any festive gourd, ideally one with a pointy, extra long stem. Here's how to play. The game is essentially ring toss. Using 3 skinny glow sticks, make as many rings as you so choose. If you want an extra challenge, you can make a few smaller ones using only 2 of the glow sticks. Now, divide your group into 2 teams, set the timer to 2 minutes, and see how many rings you can get on that pumpkin as you can. Don't forget to have your teams keep score so you know how many each team has done. Or use multiple pumpkins, 1 or more for each team. Of course, there are numerous ways to adapt this game to different group sizes or even different types of gourds. You could have people holding them up, or have multiple gourds on the ground representing different amounts of points based on how difficult they would be to ring. If you're looking for a good autumnal game using minimal supplies, Ring My Gourd is the one for you. Well, that's all for today's episode. I was truly moved reading Chris Scaife's book. It's unique in its blend of history, legend, and a touching story of a man's journey and his life's purpose. If you're someone who's already thinking of your Christmas shopping, I think it would make a great gift. The quirky blend of topics and ideas, humor and depth are what I hope we create with every episode of the Big Smoke Variety Show. This episode also made me think a lot about rituals and traditions and how they connect us to each other. Why we as humans hang on to them, enjoy them, maybe even need them. I've also been curious to take a look at other raven stories in the world, like the lesser-known Dickens novel Barnaby Rudge, featuring a raven called Grip. I love the quotes that Chris includes in his book where Dickens describes the raven's walk like that of a very particular gentleman with exceedingly tight boots on trying to walk fast over loose pebbles. Such a funny image. And he also says their sound is not unlike the drawing of some 8 or 10 dozen of long corks. So specific, so evocative. So I thought I'd end this episode by opening a wine bottle to see if it does, in fact, evoke the raven. It's so smooth, it's not making a sound. Well, did that sound ravenish to you? Either way, I now have this red wine bottle open, so I better put it to good use. Thanks for listening.
Well, so long until we meet again. I'm so glad that you were here, my friends. And the time may be fast, but good friendships will last. So long until we meet again. Good night, everybody.